The greater danger is not that our hopes are too big and we fail to reach them, but they are too small and we do. Permission to dream. Write down one of those 20 to 25 year big, crazy goals. Something that way down the road that you have 2 decades plus to accomplish. And this should be the kind of thing that if it were to come true, the only way that you could explain that it came true is that you could point back to this 25 years ago and say, I wrote it down. Because otherwise everybody would be like, no, how the crap did that happen? So to show you this model, I'm going to give you a couple of mine to fill in here on this side as an example. Now I got to explain this. It says surfer physique, okay? I see myself as an old man in Hawaii with like perfect physique that I could go out and surf all day. Have anybody surfed here? It's freaking so hard. Oh my gosh. Like after a few minutes, you're just like, but you see Hawaiians out there just going at it for hours and hours and hours. So that picture in my head of being able to sit there on a surfboard and just wait for the ideal wave and then to paddle and to catch it and to do it and to know how to surf is all kind of part of my vision. A bit of an athlete. And I guess in my version that's got quotes on it because my boys are all athletic and they're all built like a freaking racehorse, you know? So just to keep up with them, writing these things down is an important part of this process. There's something to that experience that may take some of our thoughts in our head, and by transmuting that onto a piece of paper, we realize that we are not our thoughts and we can have some level of control over our thoughts and we can subdue some thoughts, we can kind of harness others. And so I'd like you to start to think about now for this exercise, one of the goals that is a 12-month goal that you may have come up with or thought about, and if not, think about one now, that is in line with this, with your 20 to 25 year goal. I'm gonna go along my surfer analogy here. Focus on the standards. Focus on the systems or the standards. You can add systems to that as well. As I picture myself 10, 20 years from now, being able to surf and enjoy the beach life and all that stuff and be physically fit enough to do that and to keep up with my kids, I wanted to get 165 pounds and under 10% body fat within the year. How many of you have had goals prior to 2024 that have not come true? See, I want to show you how to make that never the case. In business, a lot of people do the same thing. They'll write up a business plan. And that business plan, they'll put a lot of energy and effort into defining all these things and who's going to do what and how it all works. And then they put it in a drawer and they don't look at it, or maybe they do look at it. Most don't. But if they do or not, why do they not get what they have set out to achieve? Why do you think you guys have had goals in the past that have not come true, that have not yet been accomplished? You will not rise to the level of your ambitions, but you will fall to the level of your standards. James Clear, Atomic Habits. You will be reduced to your common denominators, and your habits rule 60 to 75% of your lives. So if you don't know how to hack your success habits, and if you don't create the standards to correlate to your goals, you're wasting your time. It's a pipe dream. It's not a goal at all. Even though you wrote it down, even though it's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound, it doesn't matter. What are the standards that you're going to have to achieve? What are the behaviors that you need to adopt? And sometimes, Maddie, they might suck, right? That's what you kind of mentioned. But often we look at these goals because we want we want stuff now. You know, I want it now too. And so I'm going to get into some more of that stuff and how we can kind of hack our way and even biohack our way into like backing into that sort of a reward system. You were thinking of this, but then we're backing it into a 12-month goal that correlates, that's kind of in line. Now, what are some of those standards that we need to adopt, the behaviors that we need to bring into our day-to-day life in order to make that happen? The thing you do once is not what creates success. It's the thing you do consistently. And so I want to be that surfer physique, perfect athletic guy like right now. And that's what screws me. Never mind. I'm not going to be that now. So I'm just going to eat some donuts, you know, and that's often what that's what we do. But if we were going to get there within the 12 months and I'm going to reach this 165 pounds, under 10% body fat, and be able to sustain and maintain a high level of cardiovascular strength and health, what am I going to need to do on a day-to-day basis? So go ahead and write down some of those things, some of your standards. I'm going to need to track my food. I need to prioritize protein is one of the other standards. Under 2,000 calories each day consumed. So that makes this start to get a little tricky. You have to kind of balance that if you're going to do all this protein and maintain the calorie counts. You got to be mindful of a lot of other things. And 3 hours of cardio a week. So those are my standards. Now, if my goal over here is 165, 10% cardio. Okay, these are like the 3 specific, measurable, time-bound, 12-month goal here. If I do this every single day, am I likely to hit this goal? There isn't a guarantee, true, but it becomes very hard, almost impossible to not hit my goal if I adopt these standards, right? So that's where I need to decide, am I willing to track my food? And that's where it really all started, is tracking my food, because then a level of awareness comes in. So that was kind of like my keystone, my main anchor habit to all these others, is first I got to track it to know if I'm even hitting this other one. And then everything else is kind of subjected to that. So let's say one of these, the 12-month goal was Monty wants to get 15 new accounts this year, by the end of 12 months, each creating 100 leads per week per account with a 50% close ratio on sales. Okay, so if that's his specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound goal, then one of his standards might be to have 1 conversation with a new account prospect each day. Now, in order to back into that, he might need to send 15 or 25 emails every single day to build up a pipe to have 1 conversation every single day. But if you start to look at those standards and say, okay, I'm working 5 days a week, so if I have 5 conversations a week, I'm typically at around this kind of close ratio. It usually takes about this much time. That's how you come up with these standards. I know they're not perfect, but what happens again is when you put the borders around this thing, you create an incredibly solid, robust system with all these components and this overarching roadmap, if you will, or methodology that really eliminates the guesswork. Like it becomes almost assured. Don't let the ambiguity keep you from defining it in the beginning, because that's what a lot of people, that's one of our tendencies. Is like, well, I don't really know if this is a great 25-year goal. Like, who knows what's going to happen in 2 years and if this is something that changes for me. But it's something that aligns with who I am today, with what's important to me today. Will my opinion change? It's possible. But what this gives me right now is a North Star. It gives me a direction to follow. It gives me something that I can tune into and tap into and say, am I on track? Do I have a target that I'm aiming towards? Because otherwise, we have all these psychological issues that come to play where it's like, well, I must be productive because I'm busy. I must be accomplishing things because there's all this collateral damage of where I've just come from in my day's list or whatever, right? So, Darren, back to your question. Can these change? Yeah, review them. Review them, I would say a deeper dive at least quarterly. So this is meant to be done all together. Like you do a session of this, you take a 25-year goal, you go through these 5 components of that goal so that you've got your 25-year vision, you got your 12-month correlating goal to it, and then you're focusing on the standards that you'll need. And if you sit down and you tap into make it a matter of prayer, make it some meditation, do some Google Chat GPT searching, and you say, okay, here's my goal. What do I need to attain? You're going to get in the ballpark. You're not going to say, standard is 2 dozen donuts a day, 5,700 calorie, you're not going to be off in left field like that. So might it require a little tweaking? It's possible. And I can share with you some of my tweaks that I've made on my goal too. That the big ones have maintained the same. Like I've maintained this under 2,000 calories since January. Now there's days that I've gone off the rails, I will admit, okay, but that North Star principle has maintained the same. What I've noticed in the past, in knowing myself, is when I've fallen off the wagon before, then usually I come back and I'm like, okay, I'm back from vacation or I'm back from whatever. And that first day back, it's like, well, I'm so busy, I don't have time for the gym. And so that begins to set a terrible precedent for rebooting and returning. So now I'm uber resolved that when I do things like that, I'm going to offset my 7 days of no gym by every day this week, I'm going twice a day. This is the fun part where you start brainstorming, what could help me accomplish this goal? Who could help me accomplish this goal? Take 2 minutes and think about all of the resources that you could unlock that would help you accomplish this goal. LifeSum is an app that tracks calories. You can scan barcodes. It lets me know where I'm at any point in the day. I can get to 5 or 6 o'clock at night and be like, I'm only at 1,200. Yes, I'm going to get a milkshake, please. And I go for it. Okay. Studio Red. That is at Vasa. There is a class that is a high intensity interval training class that combines a lot of fast movements with cardio and weight training, and it'll smoke you. Like, it's pretty rugged. So I do that often. That's one of my resources. Bowflex in my house. I have a cardio machine that I use in my house. So that's one of my resources. My boys, they're one of my resources. Personal training, coaches, Instagram, finding people that offer the kind of content and information on diet, nutrition, weight training, exercise, etc. YouTube, a wealth of information there that I can search to find the resources. And I've been doing, it's July, I've started this in January. Okay, I started recognizing where I was at in relation to my goal, and I started realizing that I'm at 150 and some change. So I'm less, and I knew I had to trim down, but I didn't know exactly how much. I didn't know what weight I would lose. Started losing a lot of weight, got from 187 to 150-ish, and it fluctuates to 152, 155, 6, something like that. So I'm in that range, but I don't have the kind of physique. I'm not in line with the picture that I have in my head or that I'm looking at for my visual inspiration. So I start asking my resources, what do I need to do? What's going on? And some of the people at the gym were like, you need to increase your muscle mass. Maybe you need to eat more protein. You need to do more weight training. So I added to my list of resources. This is actually on my list of resources. But Zach, here in this room, I don't know if you guys have seen Zach. He's kind of got meat arms dangling off his shoulders, kind of a big dude. So I know he hits the gym. I know he pumps the heavies. I'm like, okay, if I want some resources, there's a guy right here that I see every single day that could be one of my resources, among other things. So my goal up here started to shift and tweak my standards shifted. And I changed a couple of my short-term goals that I'm going to get into next based on that shift that I needed to make, because Studio Red was beginning to shred the fat layers off of me, but I wasn't going to be able to hit my target because my weight was just going to go down, 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 and my muscle was going to reach a certain point, but then not really get challenged enough. So my resources from round one began telling me, you need more weight training. You need to up your macros with your proteins. You need to add some fats, and you need to lift more weights. So your cardio is pretty good, but your weights, probably not enough. So you got to build that muscle mass. And then I learned something as a result of that, again, going to my resources that was helping me on this journey, even though many of them didn't even know the journey or anything. This is all just me. I began to learn from them that as I increase weight from muscle mass, I will burn more calories sitting at my freaking desk. I'm like, well, that sounds promising. You know what I'm saying? I love the idea of reaching this goal sitting right there, Not being like, "Dude, I gotta spend 4 hours in the gym today. Holy crap. I don't have that kind of time to spend that for the rest of my life. I could do it for a short term, but increasing that muscle mass just burns more calories, and it adds a whole level of health and safety, like a stumble, a trip, things like that. Stronger, muscular people don't have injuries as much as weak, frail, skinny people do. So there's a balance that you want to strike there. Wow, shocker, right? Chirp to people as some of these resources. Zach, have I chirped at you about your cardio and what I'm going to do? Like, I'm kind of run my mouth a little bit because there's some built-in positive peer pressure there. I kind of make fun of him for being this big muscle-bound guy that can't last 5 minutes on the treadmill, right? So that's my little jab at him to get a little bit of jab back.
I'm doing 30 minutes a day now. So.
See? Now he's back on that because that's that cycle. So we've created a little bit of that exchange so that there's a positive reinforcement. Be willing to share some of these goals with the right place, the right resources that you're working with, the right people that can hold you accountable and bring a positive element of peer pressure so that you feel that fuel. And that helps, Maddie, when you're on this stuff that's like, I don't know if I want to hold these standards. When you start running your mouth to other people, it adds a whole new element of like, okay, well, now I got to put out. I better put up or else they're going to tell me to shut up, right? So I do it with Monty too. I talk trash to him. Are you too scared to come to the gym with us, Monty? Huh? What's your deal? Even though I know he's going to hit the gym every day, I'm still kind of running my mouth a little bit. So chirp a little bit, get some positive peer pressure. The other thing is don't be cheap. I spent $1,000 on the Bowflex. If there's a resource that can help you unlock this 25-year vision, and you're like, I don't know, I'm not going to spend $1,000. Like, I've put so many hours on that freaking Bowflex by now. I mean, my hourly rate has got to be like nothing, If you don't want to compromise your own integrity and tell yourself that your goals, you are not worth what it is. Unlocking resources will cost money. I spend a lot of money on coaching. I spend an incredible amount of money on continuing education with books, training courses, etc. Don't be cheap with the things that can help you be the person, you're the best version of yourself. Invest in yourself. Not only do you unlock more and more resources by not putting yourself in that box, but just imagine, like, I'm sure a lot of your goals have income tied to them, right? That's a big chunk of a lot of our goals. And if you're going to be cheap, you're basically saying, well, I would like to accomplish all this and make all this money, but I don't want to spend any money to get there. And so that subconscious voice that doesn't really come all the way to the surface is kind of saying, you'll probably never get there because you're not willing to take the steps that are required to get there. If you know that they're on the resource list and you're not willing to engage or participate or put in some of that, then you're kind of undermining some of your efforts right out the gate. Tie the things that you want, even that you might be able to afford, or you would otherwise just go and buy. And sometimes I've been in the habit of going to buy things just willy-nilly. And I'm changing these things up so that I'm tying more of my purchases to the things that I want to accomplish so that there's a greater level of appreciation. It's cutting down on just like impulse spending, which helps me financially overall. But it really becomes a driver to the things that I'm setting out to accomplish. So I had one goal that I was curious about, this stupid little device here called the Lumen. Once I get below 165, I'm going to buy the Lumen. I'm going to celebrate the journey. I will buy some of those. I will not be cheap, but I also am going to tie them to accomplishing something where just sweat is going to get me the result first. Then I'll see if I can fast track that. So once I got below 165, I said, okay, I'm going to go buy it. But then it was close to Father's Day. So I said, here's what I'd like for Father's Day. I would like the Lumen. And that was my Father's Day present. Well, as we started talking about summer vacation plans and the kids getting out of school, that was right about the time that I was saying I need to lift weights. So I told my wife, I'm like, okay, let's plan the vacation and everything, but I'm not going to go until I have 60 days of consecutive weightlifting, 7 days a week. You can go, but I'm not going to go unless I accomplish that. So we booked the tickets and everything, like made all the accommodations and got the Airbnb and the whole 9 yards. But by doing that, and then by making her one of my resources and by chirping and sharing that information with her, do you think on days when I was like, that she was a help or a hindrance to me accomplishing my goal?
Help.
Yeah. And it never, just like, oh, so are you going to go to the gym in the morning or are you going to go in the afternoon? And just that implied, like, well, you said you were going to do it for 60 straight days. So that was just enough to be like, I guess I'm going to go in the morning. Be back in an hour. Because and in that case, sometimes doing things for other people is bigger motivators than doing them for yourselves. So in that one, it was like, am I really going to send my whole family off to Mexico and not go? Well, I better get the freaking weights lifted. And so I did. And I had 60 straight days. And then she saw that, and that actually turned into some new thing. And she said before we left, she's like, I've seen you go to the gym and you've been lifting weights now for 2 months, every 7 days a week, no days off. You've been going to the gym. She's like, I want to lift weights with you while we're in Mexico. The place has a gym. And now she's doing that. And just imagine that. Who else could support you? Connect to anchors or triggers is the last thing here. So what you want to do as you've laid out this plan with your standards is you define this stuff, have it written down somewhere, tie it to things that you already do so that you're reviewing this stuff regularly. So what is the frequency? Is it yearly or is it never? Yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily, hourly. The frequency at which you review these things and keep them top of mind. This is a lot of work. That's why nobody does it. 1/100th of 1% of people do this. And I promise you that the people at the top of the heap when it comes to income, when it comes to tax brackets, when it comes to life satisfaction, when it comes to health and fitness, it is a lot of work, but it's the most rewarding work that you can do because you're taking some time to think about what is your North Star. And then you break it down, and do you see how if you put that much time into one of your goals and you reduce it to these things and then you review it at the end on a regular basis and you anchor that review, you attach it to something else that's already in your schedule that you habitually do day in, day out, multiple times a day. You connect those things together and you begin to leverage the results that are already existing. You tap into that 60 to 75% of your own humanity that is unconscious and say, wait a minute, I want a different outcome. I haven't been able to get it yet. I've been tiptoeing around it for 5 years, but I've never really made any significant measurable progress. And once you do, and you put the time and the effort into seeing what the standards are, you unlock your resources, you reward yourself and celebrate the journey, and you review them regularly. It becomes very clear, I gotta make a change. I gotta add something to hit this goal. So even though I'm really tracking well, my results they're positive, if I want to hit this goal, I'm going to need to add weight training. So how can I add weight training to this? Celebrate the journey. Well, I'm going to go to Cabo if I go 60 days of weight training. And there's other things that you can tie to this. I have a running list that I share with my wife. There's things on there like e-bikes, a new golf cart, an Oura ring is one of them on there, right? I want to track my sleep and other things. That is all part of this, which, like I said, I could really get sucked in and easily be like, oh, I need to buy one of those and just fill my life with a bunch of crap that I rarely use. But if I tie those things to an outcome, then I reward myself for reaching the outcome. And what's cool is I'm starting to see that some of the things that I desire are in line with my goals now, instead of just, I want a giant fudge sundae and my goal is this. There's kind of a disconnect between those two. Now my goals or my desires are more like, I want a house in Hawaii and I want an Oura ring to track my sleep so I can more optimize this and make this better. This was a hard one for me because I didn't even know where I should be. So it was kind of like a moving target. And so I Googled a lot of things like, what should a guy that's my age, that's my height be? Should I be 180? Should I be 160? Should I be one? And I came to this as a pretty good target. Question mark. I don't really know for sure, but I'm getting closer to that and I'm starting to see, I can look in the mirror and be like, it's making some progress. I'm getting there. I'm not quite there, but I'm getting there. So I may need to move this and adjust it a little bit before my year is up. I would recommend doing this process once a year for your big goals to make sure that you're on track. But you can still do quarterly reviews, which I do with my wife quarterly. I want to get together with her on stuff. I want to share with her what I'm working on. I'd like her to share with me what she is working on, what's important to her, and then talk about business, talk about relationship, kids, all these things. So my anchors are daily. I anchor in the morning. I anchor in the middle of the day. I anchor usually in the car and at the end of the day. So I've got several touch points through the day when I make myself aware of this, but it's pretty quick. I'm looking at the thing on my phone screen and I think through and I look at my notes and I'm like, okay, cool, yep, okay, all right, done. Every once in a while, maybe once every 3 days on average, that cabin in Montana catches my eye. And I just open a tab and I'm like, Montana, Zillow. Follow one course until successful, right? When you put energy into something, you start to get results. And if you can build that momentum, those rocket ships, they burn 93% of their fuel in the first 7 or 8 minutes of flight. And then the next 2 weeks, they're burning 3 or 4%. They come back with reserves. It's getting through the atmosphere. It's breaking that gravitational pull of habits. That sucks. That's the hard part. But if you quadruple down in developing new habits and tying your outcomes to existing habits, it makes all the difference in the world. Don't fail to engage in this process because you're like, well, I don't know if that's going to be applicable to me in 5 years. Dude, screw that. Do it now. Let it drive your decisions and directions now, in line with your morals and your values and your relationships and your family and what's important to you today. You can change it at any given time. Maybe I want to move to Switzerland in 2 years and climb the Alps or whatever. I don't know. But I'm going to be better off as a result of this for the last year than I will be without it. What does success look like? If we're doing a SMART goal, how is it done when you can check it off of your list? So think of it that way. So I will reach my goal before 1 year is over. Right now I'm going to the gym usually 7 days a week. And I don't like that. I don't want to do that. I want to do it more like 3 or 4. Have some days that I just do cardio at home and not be so freaking aggro about it. But until I reach my goal, I've set the standards. And those standards will get me to my goal, but they're going to get me there like in a month or 2 from now. And then it's up to me to look at my quarterly when I do a peek into my goals and say, is there something more that I want to accomplish? Because my big goal up here of being a billionaire or of having the surfer athletic body, is there something else I want to add? And maybe I say, I need to take surfing lessons. Maybe that triggers me to say, I'm going to get an Airbnb and work in Maui for the next 30 days and take surfing lessons. And just see how close I am to that because I've hit my 12-month goal, but my bigger vision, and that opens the door to the next one. So if I'm a billionaire, that's my goal, and my goal was to start a business with like the 12-month precursor to that, get a business going that's generating revenue. Okay, that in 6 months, am I on track? Where am I at right now? I got the business started, I've done everything, I've hit my 12-month mark, I'm only 6 months in. How much is my business bringing in? I would just reevaluate. And if you're bringing in $1,000 a monthly net operating income, then you might say, okay, next goal is hit $10 million of annual recurring revenue. Now that's a whole new set of standards, a whole new set of resources that you can unlock, a whole new set of coaches and expertise and books and knowledge and classes and courses, and that's how you level that up. If this resonates with you and you can see that this is something that is important, create a ritual where you do this annually, put some time into it, go out of your normal environment and take a couple of days to just do this and to get clear. And it is a lot of work and you have to think about it and you have to Google stuff and you have to ask ChatGPT and you have to connect dots and you have to take things like something so big and so crazy and then start reducing it to 12-month and then standardizing what you would have to do to get there. And that's why you take a big thing like this, a big, hairy, audacious goal, and you reduce it to 12 months. That's a stepping stone to that, because that's where you can start getting standards. To take standards of this direct, it's just hard. So this is there as like that North Star guiding principle. I'm going to get to this point someday, but all I'm going to focus on right now is what am I going to be in 12 months? Because 12 months I can handle changing my diet and tracking my food for 12 months. I may not be able to handle it my whole life, but now, man, I'm a different person than when I started that thing 6 months ago. My habits, my routines, the things that I know about my metabolism, like when I start eating, what I put into my body, like it's so much more then I didn't know. But starting that path, and to Darren's question, like how do you know when you make changes? You will know if you're following this path and you connect anchors to review this stuff regularly. You will win. If you do this, you will win. If you start doing this, this, and this, your winning is assured. The greater danger is not that our hopes are too big and we fail to reach them, but they are too small and we do. Michelangelo said that back in whenever he lived, a long time ago. And it is true, like we set our sights here because we don't want the disappointment. We don't tell anybody our goals because we don't want people holding us accountable. F that noise, man. It is better over here. Some of the things that I've accomplished doing this formula, or the stuff that I wrote in this box, I blew by it in a couple years and I was like, you're shitting me. Oh my goodness. I didn't even think, like, it builds upon itself.